and Max is committed, and I often ring him up and I pick his brains. I might have a master's degree and studied economics, but I defer to his scrutiny. And we work as a team, we ask questions. And I might help him, and we tag team. So this is just an example of how we work together, hopefully for a better outcome.
Good to have you, mates. This is wonderful to hear. For those who are looking to stand, this will be one of the most frustrating things that you're going to have to navigate through. It does require strong leadership. It does require constant challenging of council officers as governors. You need to understand that, because this has been doing my head in. There is a way forward, and I would extend thank you to Max, because he's been precise with some of his assumptions, but it needs more. For me, it's been probably the most frustrating is the thermal dryer. And when we were navigating through the thermal dryer, we had something between the estimates of 12 to 15, then it went up to 25, and now we're looking at 70. I know. But for those who are looking at standing, if you get in, just understand the frustrations that you're going to be navigating through. But it needs an overhaul. It needs an audit. It needs a review.
When I've been in business and in my private life, if I negotiate to have a job done, I ensure that the contract that is signed covers the job, and if the contractor does something wrong, he covers the cost, or she covers the cost of the overrun. If there is a mistake in my assumptions and the development of my contract, I should wear that cost. In council, we should ensure that we have qualified people, experienced people with a proven track record who are tasked with that duty. And we should have somebody who scrutinises those figures, who's an expert in that field, to ensure that when we negotiate as a council a contract, the contractors that are given that contract, that responsibility, and they sign the bottom line, we know how much we're going to spend.
This, I think, has been the biggest fault with council at the moment, is that the contracts aren't thoroughly examined, that there are loopholes, that there are cost overruns that shouldn't be happening. As Graham said, if you contract somebody to build your house, then the house should cost you whatever you're going to pay for it. It's the same with any of these big projects. Like I said before, we get, sitting in the back row, you see councillors get presented with concept plans. There's nothing concrete there, but if they're like the zoo, what was it, 15 million for the otters or something?
9 million.
Oh, 9 million, sorry. 4 otters, right. Yeah. So, I mean, and it's just a concept plan. We actually haven't got a solid plan yet, but it's just figures like that. It's the same with the cricket pavilion. You know, we need to actually get fine detail in the contract so that no errors are made, no cost overruns are made. And like Brian said about the 30% contingencies, I actually had one with the community board where we had a footpath done, and there was a contingency of 30%. I mean, it was a 30,000 job, but, you know, dollar job, but it was like we still had a 30% contingency on it. Why? The council officer had no answer for me about that.
Over the next 10 years, and hopefully we can put some stops to this, but over the next 10 years, the current long-term plan is $1 billion worth of projects. Of that, 10 to 15% is contingency. Let's just say it's 10%. It's 100 million. That's $10 million a year. Now that $10 million a year shouldn't just be on a contingency, so if the builder goes over it, they can just dip into it. That should be put aside, and it comes back to council to decide if we want to spend that much. And it's even worse than that, because if they can't spend that much, what do? They take some design out of the project. We were showing the big fancy, as Christine said, we were showing the big fancy concept, but when it comes down to it, look at the cycleway. All the paths were going to be bright green. Remember those big fancy pictures? None of it's green. Okay? The Leonora Centre, that was going to be stainless steel on all 3 sides. Guess what? It's 2 1/4 sides. They cut these prices out. Now, if you were building a house and you said, right, $700,000 for that 3-bedroom house, the builder promises it, he says, here's the key, give me $700,000, but I only built 2 rooms. What would you say? Oh, and by the way, it's a steel roof. You wanted a tile roof. I don't know what Max will think about that, but you wanted a tile roof, I've only given you a steel roof. Well, that's not on the plan. Well, it doesn't matter, that's all I could do it for. You would take that builder to court and you would win every time. Why is that not happening in this council?
One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, and something that I've become aware of through having a discretionary fund for the community board, is that the council prefers to work with council-approved contractors, which for me seems like a bit of a monopoly. Yes. And it actually doesn't encourage competition. And I mean, I haven't looked deeply into this, but it kind of seems like some of them are taking advantage. Yes. So I think a big part of making sure contracts are affordable is actually increasing competition, but at the same time making sure that we have quality control, because we all know when people can cut corners, and we don't want that either.
I support what Teresa just said, and we need definitely competition. But look, it's broken. The system's broken, and if we want the same, keep on doing the same thing. It needs to be not just an audit done. You actually need independent oversight, especially on Tier 1 and Tier 2 projects. What does that mean? Actually means that the decisions, first of all, they look at the scope. Almost all the time the scope has been poorly defined, written on the back of a sheet. And, well, $30 million, $10 million. We should never get even to council to be looked at. Second thing is independent oversight. What does that mean? It actually means that they have control to say no. Actually, that's not good enough. Go back. No, we need to go back to the market. You can't ask councillors to make these decisions on things that actually they're not subject matter experts on. It's actually very tough for them. These papers are couched in such a way, written with hundreds of pages of information, it's just too much. But people who actually know what they're doing, who are independent of the council, can advise the councillors how that they should be concerned, vote, or reconsider. And that's what happens. You'll break that paradigm if you do that.
And there's a lot of people who can't pay their rates now, and they're faced with them going up further and further. There's some people paying, I know some pensioners live in their house 6 months of the year, and their rates are $14,000 a year. So I don't know what the answer is for them. And they've lived in that house for a long time, and it's not me. So I'm not being So, and we see things where there's talk about putting caps to rates in terms of limiting inflation, or having some measurement for how those increases should be happening. And let's face it, inflation has to be accommodated. You can't just disregard that. But my question is, what's the maximum you think a family with 2 kids in a house in this district should have to pay a year in rates?
Peter's already asked me this question, and I dodged it. If you mean, and my question was, I answered this question with another question. I said, well, not every 3-bedroom house is the same. It's not made the same way, the land value is not the same, so it's actually very difficult to say how much they should pay. In saying that though, it's clear we can't afford double-digit rates. And so, yep, what I would say is that, we can't do CPI. Council has roading and infrastructure and leaky pipes, so 2.7% a year isn't going to cut it. You're going to go backwards. But also, 10% means that we're probably paying too much, and we're investing in things that we probably the community doesn't need to afford. So from my perspective, I can't answer with a figure, but I can say that we should be in the range of 5 to 7%, but if we can actually make it less, then let's do so.
I'll just pluck figures out of my head, which I think for how many in the family? Ed? 2?
We've got 2 kids.
Yeah. At the lower end, probably 1,500, upper end 3,000, depending on the property. I mean, I met a woman the other day who's retired. She's a widow, and she told me that her rates have gone up from 4,000 to 9,000, and she was in tears. And it's not just actually the retired and pensioners that I'm concerned about. You know, I watch what's happening in America quite a lot, and we've got a lot of conservative leaders over there now talking about the disparity between generations and about the debt that my son's generation will be settling, and it's deeply concerning. And these kids can't afford to leave home. That 10 years ago, a 30-year-old could afford to buy a property. It's gone up to 38. You know, and I could spit out a whole bunch of figures like that, and it's really concerning. And eventually, we're going to become a community where only the wealthy can afford to live here. And we won't be the most livable district anymore.
I've got an idea, but I don't know if you like it or not, but I'm going to tell you. 3,000 to 5,000 is what I think is reasonable, for, you know, because a lot of single people out there. On the other hand, there's people living in houses, and there's 6 adults in one house. If you've got a rental, you might have 2 adults in each bedroom. They're paying the same amount as a little old lady living by herself. How fair is that? So why don't they just pay the rates I've suggested, and then maybe an extra $200 to $300 a year, which is not much, 10 or 15 dollars a week each, $200 to $300 a year extra per person. That's per adult over 18. So if there's 6 adults over 18, they're going to pay $800 more. But you know that's a good way of looking at it. So yeah, we need to look at things like that, and that can easily be done through the electoral roll. But it's totally unsustainable. You wait until you're 20 or 30 years out. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about my daughter.
I look at it from another perspective. Everybody's happy when their property value goes up, aren't they? No, that's good. Because that's what you pay your rates on. So that's part and parcel of the problem for us, especially for us older generation. For the younger ones who can't get into a house, I've got 2 grandchildren who probably be, nearer the 38 mark, who are probably still living at home with their parents, not with me. That's the thing though, our property values go up, therefore our rates go up. I'm a bit miserable because I live rurally on a small block, so my property value was quite high, and I've actually argued against it because it's gone up so much in the last few years. I've actually put an objection in for it. For your younger families that have got the 2 and 2, to be honest, they'll be lucky if they can eat meat.